Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Mornings with Marit. Today I have a special guest with me, which is Steve Harvill with Creative Ventures. Steve, thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Well, it's an honor to get to share ideas again. We've done a lot of things over the years, and between Colin and my Creative Ventures team up in Dallas, you guys are one of our favorite clients.
Well, thanks, Steve. I bet you say that to all your clients, I'm sure, but I'll
No,
take
I
it.
don't.
And now that it's published and people can see it, I now have it on record, so I appreciate that. But thanks for being here. I know the last couple of weeks you and I have spent quite a bit of time visiting and talking about what's going on and what kind of tips and tricks we can provide our membership. And today I thought the concepts you have around really looking at how do you be purposeful in your day would be a great tool for folks, especially that they're home, and how do you get the most out of your time. So thanks again, and we'll get through this. I also want to remind everyone that we do have a Facebook page, and please join us there for conversations. We're also trying to get ideas from you like these to add to the different series that we have. So please join the conversation, and you're welcome to be part of our guests there. So Steve, I'm going to actually hand it over to you and have you walk through these concepts. We'll chat a little bit, and then we'll pass it along at the end.
Great. You can just jump in anytime along the lines of the content that we'll be talking about.
Oh, I'm sure I
So
will.
what I want to share with everybody is this idea of purpose. Purpose is kind of created around the things that matter most to us. And as Americans, we've got a very tight connection to the value of our lives related to the work we do. It's often how we build a big part of our identity, and it's why when you meet somebody for the first time, their first question is often, what do you do? When we work around others on a daily basis, we take our work and we create a social connection, and that's normally kind of designed to the geographic place that we are. And this workplace gives us structure. That structure is a very big part of the foundation of our purpose. And if you take all that away, we find ourselves distracted and disconnected. Minutes roll into hours, hours into seemingly endless days. The difference between Friday and Monday and Saturday and Thursday seems to just vanish. It's just days, which is really weird because, our calendar's been around since the 21st century BC, and already we're being able to just dash it onto the rock of trying to get stuff done. So what I want to do is I want to introduce a simple strategy. And as you know, if you've been involved with us before, we've spent 35 years building all of our strategies around the idea of simplicity. But I want to talk to you about a strategy around purpose that has 2 attack points, and only 2 attack points. The first is the idea of intention. Intention is a planned action towards an intended outcome. So think about this. Even the most simple element of traveling from point A to point B, as an example, can get twisted and become muddled and confused without some sense of intention, even the most simple element doing it. So let's define, for our purposes today, let's define intention by having 2 parts. Actions that are impactful, A actions, or B actions, actions that are important. And it's important to separate those 2 things in the intention cycle. Is what's the difference between impactful and important? And you guys kind of already have this in your head. So if you were going to do a really simple exercise around this, we did it visually using Post-its, but you can also just use a regular piece of paper and draw a vertical line and then 2 horizontal lines, creating the same kind of columns you see here. And here's how the exercise works. On the first 2 Post-its, or in the first 2 columns, you write the 2 most important things you have to get done today. And in the second one, you write the second most important things you have to do. And in the tertiary column, the third column, you write the 3 most important things you have to do. And at the end of you thinking about this, putting it down on paper, you'll have 6 actionable items right in front of you. Now I'm going to show you how you get to the difference between important and impactful. If I told you, look at your first 2 most important things, take one of them away, you don't do it. Just throw it out, it's gone. Go to that second line and take the second most important things you're going to do, throw them out. There, that one's gone. And on the third line, take one of those and throw it out, and you'll have a model that kind of looks like this. And that's the difference between important and impactful. You would have taken the important items out, and you would have left those items that were impactful. That's a really important difference between these two items in your head, being able to tell the difference between what gives impact and what's important. Now, I'm not telling you you don't get to do the important items. I'm just telling you that impactful items, way more. They're more intentful, and they create a greater connection to purpose. So it's important to be able to, in this simple strategy, to define in your head the difference between important and impactful. And I want you to take a look at impactful, because that's what we're going to deal with in our little time we have together. Now I'm going to give you the second part of this strategy, and that's structure. So now you have intent. You have impactful items. Now, if we're tying this all to purpose, remember, that's the idea. You have to have a sense of structure to this. Now, I come from a Southern California surfing family, and strangely enough, I went into I have a couple degrees in science, and so I have this very loose, tight, loose relationship to structure. And as we go through, I'll show you how impactful that is and how important that is to be able for you to be able to take this kind of journey. So let's think of it like this. Think of you using your GPS, and we'll go back to another A/B example. You're going someplace you've never been before. You type this thing into, or ask Siri or whatever one you're using, and it'll give you this kind of step-by-step element to get there, a structure for a pathway for you to get to your intended location. That's what the GPS element is. It's 6 satellites in geosynchronous orbit that tie together to give you this kind of idea of structure to it. Step by step. You need to have a structure in order for you to accomplish impact. Now, if you're used to sitting in an off, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about, I think you're about to go there, but a little bit about how different the world looks like right now from a standpoint of structure, and what that structure has changed for us like?
Sure. Even let's say your employer has given you a really firm set of things that you're doing every day in your absence from the office. Even in a structure like that, you need to have strategies for accomplishment, because the world is looking different. If you think that you can get 8 hours of productive work done in a socially isolated separation from those things that you've been so used to, you'll go crazy. In fact, cut that in half and say to yourself, in this new world, is there a way for me to get 4 hours of really good stuff done? And if you can do that, you're a superstar of working at home.
And frankly, we probably were only getting 4 hours of productive work done anyway in an office setting that's social, with meetings and interruptions and all of that anyway. Would that be fair?
Yeah, you're right. It felt different is all.
Yeah.
And this is what feels different. You know, even in the most structured environment, an architect who has to design and rely on the engineering of metals and glass, and he's got a site that he can only use so much of, and he's got the plans. Even in something as structured as that, there's what we call the 15% factor. And that's that you've got 15% freedom elements within that to be able to do something that fits your DNA, that fits how you work. And that's kind of what you head in the structured strategy, right? It's designing a day, even with somebody else giving you structure, that still works for you. And if you don't have that structure, your ability to intentfully get impact done and create purpose is unbelievably mitigated. It won't be there. And so what I thought I'd do on the structure part is kind of share with you what my revised one looks like. Is that okay, Marit?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, let's do that. Because I think this will help people see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is about the structure of your day. And so this is going to be kind of small on the screen, but I'm going to show you what mine looks like, and I'll walk you through it. I don't sleep. Ever since I was like a little kid, I've slept maybe 3 to 4 hours is a long night of sleep for me. I'm almost always in what's called sleep deprivation, but my biology somehow ignores it. But I know that during this virus element, it lowers your immunity system. So I force myself to stay in bed instead of up at 4 and going until 6 a.m. That's completely different from the way my life would be. I may be awake, lying in bed, looking at the ceiling and thinking of the end of times, but that's my get up time.
So that's not my problem, Steve. So I'll just comment on that. 6 a.m.
Yeah.
seems a little crazy to me, but I can accommodate the idea. How's that?
Yeah, it's weird. I have been this way my entire life. When I was a junior tennis player, none of the other kids would room with me because I wouldn't sleep. And so this is probably the biggest change for me, my forced element to it. And then my wife and I spend some time together in the morning. We've got an Audible book going. We talk about the day. We check the world's condition on our iPads briefly. It's the touchstone for beginning my day, and it's really important for me to kick it off. Then I'm down in my office by 7, probably a little before that. Now, this is where the day takes its most significant move for me, and that is what we call first focus. When I'm in the office at 7, the very first thing I look at is what we call at Creative Ventures the one critical thing, or the OCT. Every single day has one of these. It only has one. It doesn't have 5, it doesn't have 10, it has one. And that critical thing that has to be done, we used to work with teams and companies when we designed this for them, telling them it doesn't have to be done first thing in the morning. It just has to be done prior to the end of the day. Now, in this new environment, I think it has to be done first.
So I will admit, Steve, that yesterday I had that one critical thing I know I had to get done. And because it wasn't exactly in my wheelhouse, it took me till 7 o'clock p.m. to get focused on it. But I didn't go to bed till it was done. So it took 2 hours. I felt good at the end of it, right?
That's that perfect mixture of loose and tight, right? You have to be open to being loose at times from this. Now, I get this done first thing. This is my very first thing. So this morning, I had already gone through this program and I was ready to go yesterday. So for me, the OCT this morning was to finish the next big blog piece that I was writing. So that got done first, done before we started this. And I'm going to give you guys a couple of links to different things, Marit, when we send out something, or we can use them as attachments or whatever they want.
Great.
That'll be on things that we've written over time on the OCT and about how to structure this. Then at 9 o'clock, I have a FaceTime huddle with my Dallas team. This idea of a huddle, a tiny little daily meeting, it happens every single day, every single work day. No matter where I am in the world, I figure out a way to make this happen. It's short. It's never more than 10 minutes.
So
and
Steve, I'm going to comment on this just because we actually began the same concept 3 weeks ago or so when we moved home, so to speak. And it's interesting, when the first time you try it, it's taken us a little while to get to 10 minutes. And I actually set it up as it's called the 10-minute huddle. And the first time we did it, it was 30. And the second time we did it, it was 25. And so I'm going to comment on that because I think it takes practice to get people good at what are the important things that need to be reported out in that huddle versus just telling everybody what's going on. So I do think that there's a practice element that happens with that and getting some structure there for folks.
And I'll help you with that. We have a huddle form, a very simple form that relates to only 3 items that a person can talk about during the huddle. We've used the form for 20 years. We've probably been using the huddle for 25. And there's a facilitator form and a participant form for the huddle that takes just seconds to fill out. And I expect on my team, every one of my team members to have that filled out before the huddle starts.
One of my agencies, their favorite term is be brief, be brilliant, be gone. So that would be appropriate for this, I guess.
Perfect. And one of the things that maybe I'll include also is a link to our toolbox. We have what's called the form toolbox, and it's got all the old school analog tools that we use, and in that are the huddle forms. And so it's important for me to have structure to the huddle. But I would never consider a day going by without the huddle happening. That's the 9 o'clock to 10, and then from 7 to 11, that's deep work. What I mean by deep work, I mean it's impactful focus on projects. And for me as a writer and a creator, I can't do it with sound. I can't have like music playing in the background or a podcast running. This is total silent time for me, and it's where I get my most important things done. I don't take any interruptions during that. I don't look at email. I don't. I have the phone off. I am totally focused on deep work, and I think that's really important. Don't be a slave to stuff that's insignificant. And maybe you don't have, this much time frame within the contest for deep work. You don't need this much. You just need to have a certain amount of time allocated for something that requires concentration and that's meaningful, that's impactful. That's when I do all my impact. So I'm done with impact by 11. I take my first exercise break. It could be anything from a walk to maybe playing 9 holes of golf or something. It's got to get my pulse rate up. I'm back and ready to roll in the office. I do my fill work. That's the important work. My impactful goes from 7 to 11. From 1 o'clock on is my fill work. It's stuff that's important. It needs to get done, but it ain't as deep work does.
Would those be the items?
A lot of times,
Steve, would those be the items you removed off the Post-it list?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, they might be, dotting I's and crossing T's on projects that are partially done. They need some financial work, which I hate to do. On stuff like that. It could be answering emails. It could be filing emails. It's fill work that has to get done, but it doesn't need the same type of concentration. Now, I'm a morning guy, so I start to burn out as the afternoon progresses. That first exercise break pushes me through to that afternoon of fill work. And a lot of times it doesn't take me till 4. But when I'm done with my fill work, I'm done. That's my day. And so the second workout hits, it's horrible, usually interval work, which I hate to do. And then I hit what are my personal learning elements. Normally around 5 o'clock, I'll do 2 10-minute learning systems, and I'll send you guys a thing on what a 10-minute learning system looks like.
And I'd love to actually do a follow-up with you on that, maybe go into that a little bit more detailed for folks.
I would love to do that.
I think that would be great.
We just finished designing a 10-minute learning curriculum on presentation skills for one of our clients, where it's a total of 3 hours, but it's broken into 10-minute chapters. And the chapters go 172 as far as the timing goes. But I'll spend one of that on guitar, very strong. Briefly, I was in a hotel room somewhere last year, and I go down YouTube rabbit holes really easily when I'm in hotel rooms. I never turn the TV on. I'm always watching YouTube stuff. And I stumbled upon this guy who was doing this abstract painting. Like, he took you through the steps of how he did it. And I watched like 10 of them in a row. And at the end of it, I went, I think I could do that. And got back to Austin and bought paint and panels and brushes. And so I've been teaching myself how to do that. And so that's my second 10-minute element. 6 o'clock, it's dinner, a little reading, couple Netflix shows, Amazon Prime, it's rinse and repeat 5 days a week. This is very loose. Sometimes sometimes my deep work is only a couple hours. Sometimes it's a little longer than that. It's just that I have a structure to my day that allows me to focus on impact and end with intention. And those are the only 2 pieces to a puzzle, a strategy around this idea of purpose. You have to have intent, recognize the difference between impact and important, and allocate time in that structure accordingly. That's it. Those are the only 2 pieces to this strategy. And you'll be shocked at the difference it will make once you recognize and get good at impact versus important. And the second is when you find a structure that works for you. You have to be disciplined. That's the downside of that, right? But you can be disciplined and flexible at the same time. And that's my advice for the day.
Great. Well, I think that's really helpful. And I think that, as when you showed that original screen about, getting from A to B, and then the second is also, this swirly little path. I think that's actually what happens when we go into the office. Sometimes you
Yeah, it
go in
probably
with,
is.
this is my intention for when I walk in today, and then you walk in, you get interrupted, and somebody wants to talk about this, and you check your email, which I think is when you really end up in that rabbit hole. Now
You
we
do.
actually have the luxury of not having those interruptions and can control them out the at the front of the day, right? Which is a unique opportunity. And so,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. I think about, if you think about it as who's the master of your day, right? If you allow all those external things to dominate your day, you're not the master of your day. In the 21 Secrets books, one of the great differentiating elements of the $1 Million Producers were that they controlled their day. And if they didn't look at email until 9 a.m., they didn't look at email until 9 a.m. because they were doing something else important. Um, I think it's that idea that you have that flexibility, that 15% of freedom in the most structured element, that allows people to be successful. They match it to their own DNA.
Yeah, great. So as takeaways, when I think about what we talked about today, really making sure that people are purposeful about the focus for their day, and then making sure that they put together some structure. I like the concept of, look, it's got to be a little bit fluid, but the discipline behind it is so critical. And what I really hope is a lot of times people will listen to ideas but not actually apply them. So my challenge to the audience today is try it, build those habits. We're actually going to be home, for a couple weeks. We know that it takes 21 days to build a habit. If you could get this working for yourself, then as you re-entry and you move back into an office environment, how do you take that and continue to be disciplined and maybe help your team even become more productive and have a different model when you get back to the office?
Yeah, that idea of flexibility is really important. I can remember as a kid, when it was a good surf day, you would look at a couple stores that were along the beach and they would be closed. They would, they would just say surfing. And when we lived in Sun Valley, skiing was the same way. It would say, somebody, here's a regular business that just said, good snow day. I'm gone this morning. I'll be back at 1.
Yep.
That idea that you can still be successful and be flexible is a really important mindset.
Yeah, great. Good. Well, I really appreciate you spending time with us today, Steve, and sharing those ideas. I know we're going to have future ones together, and both on a webinar and also in person, I'm sure, when we can all get back together and not be doing this social distancing thing.
I can't wait.
Great. So as just a wrap up, we are working on another episode that should be launched in the next, hopefully 24 hours or so, that's about communicating with your customers during this new normal. Any thoughts on that, Steve, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things, right? There's different types of which client gets what kind of communication. In Pareto's law, where 20% of your clients deal with 80% of your revenue in one model, or 80% of the stuff that's important to you, you need a separate, what we call a whale communication, a communication to the 20%, than you do to the rest of your clients. So you have to kind of structure what you're doing to your best clients and what you're doing to the rest of the client base. That's one of the structures in there. And the other thing is, I think that I'm pretty sure that most of your clients don't need to hear from you about the virus.
Yeah, I think they've heard enough.
Yeah, your communication should be about something else, and you should mix it up with stuff that helps them, makes them better. Here's the one question. Think about it as one question. How can I be better than I was before I left? And if you can figure out methodologies to answer that one question, you'll be more valuable to your clients, you'll be more valuable to your company, you'll be more valuable to everybody. So think about structuring communication around that singular question, and have a different one for your best clients than you do for everybody else.
Great. Good. Well, thank you, Steve. I know we're going to be interacting quite a bit, and you're a good example of somebody who's you're used to being on the road. I am too. We're used to being so buried with customer needs and traveling and speaking and so forth, and having some downtime has really allowed us, and which is what you did, is reach out and say, look, I just want to help. What can I do to be a resource for you during this time? And that's what makes really strong relationships. And one of the comments we'll be making in this next presentation is the 2021 winners are being made right now. It's what you're doing
Absolutely.
currently, right? And that will show up in the long run. So with that, if you'll just finish that last slide, one more over, we
Sorry,
just want to
got
remind
it.
you to join us on Facebook, and thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful morning. Thanks, Steve. Have a
Thanks,
great day.
everybody. Thank you so much.